Good afternoon, Santa Clarita and everyone else streaming around the world. You're listening to the Unreality Show, where today we talk about all the different reality shows and the major dysfunctions that happens on the show and with the reality stars. And we take a positive approach and figure out how we can learn from that and how we can have them mirror us in our lives sometimes when we're being dysfunctional and how we can grow. And on the show today, joining me in studio are my co-host Jerry Cerati Goldman.
Hey.
Over here in the looking beautiful in the orange.
Bright.
And we have the lovely Ellen Tunick. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I appreciate you taking the time.
Our pleasure.
So we watched Little People, Big World. What was your take on that show? And then talk a little bit about what the show was about, this segment.
Well, that was I've watched the show for many years. So I've watched these kids grow from babies all the way now getting married and having babies of their own. So for me, this is a very inspirational show, and it actually turned my mind around about, I mean, when I grew up, we called them dwarfs or midgets, and I would never say that. It's little people, LP. They make that very clear. And get to see the world that is a challenge for them and how they persevere through it. And it's a very inspirational show for me.
It was the very first time I had actually ever seen the show. So I honestly had to watch it twice. I actually watched it twice. I'm not at the point where it's inspirational. I was at the point where I was going, what is it that people see in this show? It actually, to be honest, made me a little uncomfortable the first time I watched it. Not so uncomfortable the second time I watched it. I found it fascinating. I'm at the fascination stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is through the years, you watch this family grow, and then the parents got a divorce, and they got a divorce on national TV.
And that's what I figured. Now but they live in the same home.
No, they live on the same property.
Okay.
They have a farm. They live in separate houses on the same property. And now the show, which I watched for many years, which was very inspirational, is now tweaking me a little bit, tagging me a little bit, because I'm watching the reaction of the parents going through this divorce and how the kids who wanted the farm someday to be theirs are guarded on what's going to happen next. So the two oldest, who are twins, one's LP, a little person, one's regular size, or both their wives are pregnant at the same time, and how they're going through this and having baby showers, and one's moving back to Portland from Bend, Oregon, and how they're going through these challenges. But it's always about, they're very guarded of, what if we do this? Mom's going to be upset. What if we do that? Dad's going to be upset. This last one was, the one that's the regular size kids, wife found out she's pregnant. They're getting ready for the baby shower, and they didn't really want to have it in the barn, which the dad did, and the mom wanted to have it in the house where all the family celebrations were. And I was watching the dynamic, and here you have two people, but this is reality. This is really what happens in divorces, and how unconscious are they that they're making their kids feel this uncomfortable about where we're going to have this celebration. This is going to be their first grandbabies. And I was shocked at how both of their reactions are. And then the other thing that's tagged me a little bit, Amy, the mom, so there's the mom and dad.
Right.
Amy and Matt Roloff. Amy, you see this powerful person. She goes around, does speaking engagements, but yet she is so insecure about herself and so second guesses things she does. So she just started dating. So what was an inspirational show to me now in this season is like, wow, here's what reality is with people that don't get coached, aren't living this life, and are, you've got one kid that's off the show. I don't think he even comes home anymore. He doesn't want anything to do with him.
So because I haven't watched it, and this was the first one, I actually got a little different take because as they interacted with their kids, they seemed very authentic with their children. The mom, Amy,
yes,
was asking her son about dating. Asked him, because his wife is of average size, regular size. Did he ever get comments? Did people snicker at him? And he became very uncomfortable and said, I don't want to talk about dating with my mother. So this happens in divorce. And how should parents tend to their children's need, even though they're going through a hard time?
I think that, parents need to just be more mindful of being considerate towards what their kids are going through or how they feel, and open up a discussion rather than making assumptions that they're okay with it, or making any other assumptions that might not necessarily be true. But I think just it's about communicating and opening up a conversation about how they feel, and definitely, being willing to not cross any boundaries as well. But for me, I think it's really about kind of opening up a conversation and asking them how they feel about that.
I am divorced a long time ago, and nobody really knew about the boundaries of divorce. The boundaries of divorce were made up, I think, as we went along. So do you think that even in today's, where there's so much information available, that the boundaries of divorce and children are still almost unexplained?
I myself went through a divorce many, many, many years ago with an infant, and it's interesting because I've done this work probably in the last 8-10 years, but I did my best to make sure that we went to counseling, and that when we had problems, we had a third party intervene. When I did get remarried, that Ryan grew up with two dads. He had Daddy Dan and he had Daddy Carl. Daddy Dan was at all the games. Daddy Dan was at Christmas. Daddy Dan was at Easter and Thanksgiving. When Daddy Dan got remarried, Daddy Dan's family joined in with their parents, and we made it comfortable so that Ryan did not feel that he ever needed to split. And I think that back then I was doing things that my friends were not doing, but I've got a very, very healthy kid because of it. And he doesn't have that same, I have to go to dad's house, or I have to go to mom's house, or I have to be here and go to 3-4 different places on a Christmas. Alex, I know you counsel people. When you coach people, what's your advice?
My advice is that both parents going through the divorce decide that they're going to embrace the process of divorce and be willing to look at it from multiple levels, meaning that it's going to be a process that neither one of them have ever probably gone through before, and be willing to be honest in that process with their kids to say, hey, mom and dad have never gone through this before, and so we're going to be trying to figure it out on the fly as it's happening. That's
based on the fact that they're still speaking. I mean, when you look at how divorce happens today, there's anger, there's resentment. So that's for a very grounded, rational couple. Most are not. So what happens when they're not, when parents aren't even speaking?
So when you asked me the question, I was speaking in the assumption that they were healthy, grounded parents.
Yeah.
So now the question,
not so much.
So now the question turns to, what if they're dysfunctional parents?
Correct.
Or parents that are angry at each other and are going through that process in resistance, or not wanting to be a part of it, or not accepting it, and all that kind of stuff. It would still be the same advice. You just don't have the other partner there that's in alignment with you. So if I was the father that was going through the divorce, I would take it upon myself that when my kids are visiting with me, that I initially sit us all down in the living room and say, hey, this is something that I never ever thought was going to happen. It's here. It's real. Your dad doesn't know how to handle it, so I'm going to be doing my best. And these are the tools that I've reached out to ask for. I've got myself a therapist or a coach. And then I would kind of be honest, emotionally honest with them, and let them know up front that I don't have all the answers. So if you're looking for me to answers, I may have some, I might not have all, but I'm going to be going through the process as much as I know you probably will be going through a process as well. And so just in case you didn't realize this, when you go through a divorce, your kids actually go through the divorce too.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of unconscious parents don't realize that their kids are going through it because they're just trying to pick themselves up off the floor. They're just trying to get themselves healthy and healed. And they don't realize that their son or daughter is also going through their own process of divorce and losing a parent and what that means to them. So they also need tools. They also need counseling and therapy and all that kind of stuff. But I think just if you're honest with your kids, sit them down and have an open conversation and say, this is what this is my commitment, is to heal myself. It's to figure out how to get along with your mom. We're gonna figure out how to work on get on the same page and work together and correspond our time with each other so that we can still have a cohesive family and we can still support you and mentor you guys into being healthy minded, powerful individuals in the world. And then I would throw in and then be an invitation. And so my invitation to you, son or daughter, is that you go along to some of these meetings with me, that you be a part of this process, and that we can do it as a family. And then maybe at some point we invite your mom. Maybe we get to a certain point where she's open to it, or hopefully she gets to a point where she can accept it or forgive me or whatever she needs to do in her healing process. And hopefully at some point our roads cross to where we can actually get to being that family that heals together. And that would be my suggestion, is to open up that dialogue and just be open and honest up front. Let them know you don't have all the answers.
I know that one of my biggest challenges, and perhaps yours as well, was how much do I tell them about what I'm feeling? Did you share that?
Well, Ryan was only 6 months old when I separated.
So you could have had an in-depth conversation and it would have been okay.
Right.
What was interesting, there was differences in our houses as he grew older, that he would, how to explain this, he would wear socks, not go barefoot in their house because it wasn't as clean as his house and his room wasn't as clean. So what ended up happening was that I think he got to find out what he wanted in his life and did not want in his life, which was very, very interesting. And his dad is a wonderful guy, but did not have the drive and the compassion that I think that he had in our house. So as he grew older and in college and graduating from college, he was calling me going, Dad's not taking care of himself the right way, or there was just weird things going on, and he was actually doing just the when you do go through divorce, you're like, there's a part of you that even though we were healthy minded with the whole thing, we still, there was times where his house was different than my house, and he would come back, a brat or whatever, and I was like, someday you're going to get this. Well, when that someday did come, it was sad for me, because he saw his dad in a different light, of where he almost had to take over, gosh, am I going to have to take over my dad someday? How's this going to look? That ended up being I remember that conversation, so very sad for me, that he was realizing things that I realized during the marriage that broke it up, but it was sad.
Well, it's interesting. It never stops. Even
What's it when you say it never stops?
the feelings of divorce for children. Now, I didn't come from a divorced family, so I have to actually ask the question, does it always simmer on some level, or do young people ever get to the place where it's not a challenge for them?
Yes, you can get to a point where you learn how to accept what divorce is. You gotta remember, divorce has different meanings to everybody. So what divorce to me might not mean what divorce is to you. But if you get your kids around healthy-minded people that have different perspectives, that can teach them a different way of looking at a divorce, or creating a new meaning around divorce, or creating a new relationship to what divorce really is. To me, divorce is just the ending of a contract. That's it. It's just two people that made a contract at one point to share their lives together, and then it ran its course to where we've decided that we either have parted or whatever. We're just ending our contract to share our lives together. Everything after that is all the stuff that we make up about it.
Newly negotiated.
Yeah, we just renegotiated a new contract, and it says that, for whatever reason, the powerful way of saying it is, I haven't figured out how to love you the way that you are, or I haven't figured out how to accept you the way that you are. You would take the more responsible perspective of it rather than the blame and being victimized by them and you're not enough and you're not this. But if you can do it in a healthy way, it's, I haven't figured out how to love you the way you need to be loved so that we can be cohesive family and be powerful. So, and sometimes it is what it is, but at the end of the day, the contract is ended. Everything else we make up about it. We make up stories that it's not right, it shouldn't be, and we put all the negative connotations around divorce.
Did you see in the show last night what I had to take was that none of them knew what this new family was supposed to look like.
Right. And I think the show that you watched last night was not, because it was a rerun. It was not a new show.
This was the baby shower.
Yes, so that was actually ran a couple weeks ago. And Matt had actually brought his girlfriend, to the house without even checking with Amy. So there's where I believe Alex is talking to, giving the information, and the advice is there was no boundary set up. And in previous shows, you've got these two boys that, are close to their mom, because the other two kids, one daughter's, I think, in Washington, and the other boy, we don't even know where he is. But there's so many shows where you see their sadness. But if you were to bring a girlfriend, that would be a boundary that should have been discussed between Matt, the mom, and Dad, Matt and Amy, that was not. And that's where I think the tee-up is. And to really tee it up is Mom staying in this house. I'm going to live in this house. But there's a selfishness I see in Matt of, I want a big house like you had, and not teeing up his kids, and that selfishness, because you did not watch the show that I thought you were going to watch was the one last week when they were deciding on having the oldest one, the tall one, having a baby shower in the barn, and Matt wanted it in the barn, did not want it in Amy's house.
That's the one we watched.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Is that the one you watched?
No.
Okay.
I watched the baby shower in the house.
Okay. That was the little person baby shower. The oldest, the twin, now they're having a baby shower. That baby shower Matt wanted to have in the barn so he could stay out of Amy's house, but that's not what the kids wanted, but he still was pushing it. So there's where, that's where it's not healthy minded in my mind. That's where you have to sit down and get on the same page and point out, hey, this isn't cool. This is for the kids. This is not about us.
Well, yeah, it's obvious they're not on the same page. They just decided to end their marriage, and they decided to kind of go with it on the fly and figure it out on the fly. And to be honest with you, that's what makes great reality shows. Because think about it, if they did have coaching and they were mindful and they were conscious, and
we wouldn't be watching.
Probably not. It wouldn't be as entertaining. It wouldn't be as, oh wow, look, do you see what she said?
There's not as much drama.
Yeah, exactly. And healthy-minded. I don't know if we'll ever have a reality show where you have some powerful, healthy-minded people. And if they are, a lot of people aren't watching them. The masses definitely aren't watching them. But there's a niche for everything. But I think some of the dysfunction is what gets people to want to watch that stuff because it's entertaining.
This show was not that same dysfunction.
It's a different kind of dysfunction. There's different levels of dysfunction.
Right, but before the divorce, you saw the challenges that this family went through, having 3 tall kids, 1 short kid, them, not short, but LP, the parents being LP, and how the challenges with traveling and doing things as a family and whatever it was.
I was watching it before I watched it periodically in little bits and pieces depending on what seasons they were, like you did, before the wedding or before the divorce. And I was watching it unravel. I could see
it coming down the pipe.
I could see the dysfunction, and it was just
a matter
of time before it got to that point where it couldn't.
What were you seeing that was telling you this is unraveling?
That's a great question. We're going to come back to that after the break. Stay tuned for more of the Unreality Show right here on your hometown station, KHTS.